Joining us now, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former White House advisor. His brand new book is phenomenal, by the way. Why We Fight, defeating America's enemies with no apologies. Also, Dan Hoffman, Fox News contributor, 30 years CIA operations officer. Dr. Gorka, I assume you agree with me that all signs point to the Saudis assassinating, murdering this guy in a barbaric way. That's what I'm thinking.
There's a rule in warfare: all reports from the battlefield must be questioned. I think this man is dead. Whether or not these audio tapes exist is another question, but it's absolutely certain that this individual was caught between two nations that want to dominate the Sunni Muslim world. That's the neo-Ottoman Erdogan regime of Turkey and the birthplace of Islam, Saudi Arabia, and this man was caught in the middle. However, this isn't a fake news. We've got to be accurate. This man wasn't a journalist. He wasn't an American. So what they're trying to spin, he was a foreign national resident here who was a commentator. He wrote commentary, and he has a decades-long history of backing the Muslim Brotherhood and is also related to the biggest Arab arms dealer of the 20th century, Adnan Khashoggi. So all of these things are total statements of fact, Sean.
What do you think, Mr. Hoffman? It's been a while, my friend. Dan, it's good to have you back. I know this has been your life and your business for so many years. My gut is pretty clear on this. I think this man was murdered in the most evil, brutal way possible. And I think that the president is wise, knowing that we're going to get to the truth now. There's no doubt we're going to have the truth. Rushing to that point is not smart, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, there's a lot of evidence that we have already. We know that 15 Saudis traveled on this Gulfstream Air and arrived at the consulate the day that Khashoggi entered. And we know Khashoggi never exited the consulate. We know the makeup of those 15 Saudis. 4 of them apparently part of Mohammed bin Salman's security team. One of them, the forensic doctor you referred to, was listening to music while allegedly dismembering Khashoggi's body after he was killed. What we don't know is what were the orders that were given to these 15 Saudis, and who gave them the orders, and then to whom did they report post-mortem? Those are all questions we need to answer. The president, I think, was 100% right to dispatch his Secretary of State to gather the facts, emphasize that this is an issue of gravest concern to us. We'll get the facts with accuracy and alacrity. That's what matters. I will remind the listeners that when Sergei Skripal was poisoned back in March, British Home Secretary Rudd said that we needed to avoid speculation while we allow the police to carry on their investigation. I think that's what's going on here. And the last thing I would just highlight is that while Secretary Pompeo is meeting and doing his public diplomacy, I'm quite sure that the FBI legal attaché in Riyadh and the other in Istanbul or in Ankara, probably meeting with their Turkish and Saudi counterparts, not to collect the evidence, but to be a part of reviewing it, Sean.
You know, I wish everything could fit in nicely, neatly into a box, assuming that I believe that the Saudis are involved, and whether it goes straight to the top, I don't know. The Crown Prince is denying it. I'm kind of having a hard time buying that myself, but knowing that they're a very different country. But now it gets complicated because also the Saudis, the Egyptians, Jordanians, the Israelis, the United States, the Emirates, they're all fighting against Iranian hegemony in the region and their quest for nuclear weapons and the instability that would cause the entire world. I know everybody, Dr. Gorka, would like to say that, okay, we're cutting off all ties with Saudi Arabia. We're done. We're this, we're that. I think there will be consequences, severe consequences, the president said. But it gets a little rougher. What do you do if you're also trying to battle another enemy? I mean, the United States did partner with our arch enemies, the former Soviet Union, to defeat Nazism in World War II.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Geopolitics is like politics itself domestically. It is the art of the possible, not the art of the perfect. And the truth is, Sean, we have a lot of leverage over Saudi Arabia. At the beginning of the Trump administration, we established very, very good ties to MBS, to Mohammed bin Salman. Those relationships are now going to be tested, but this is a nation that survival depends upon our support militarily, in arms sales, and in training. So there's a lot that we can leverage against Saudi Arabia, but you are absolutely right. This is part of a great...
Well, I wish we would have leveraged it in the last 8 years when Obama was president. You know, knowing that gays and lesbians are killed routinely and Christians and Jews are persecuted and women are treated like fourth-class citizens. I mean, you know, that never seems to come up when there's a Democratic president.
Sure. Can I give you one example of how bad it was? So this guy, who was a deep, deep sympathizer for the Muslim Brotherhood, President Obama, when he went on his global apology tour and he started it in Egypt, who was in the front row of that event, sitting there, invited by the Obama White House, the Muslim Brotherhood's chief representatives? That's how big a difference an election makes, Sean.
Yeah. Dan Hoffman, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is a bit of a self-inflicted wound, Sean, from the Saudis. I mean, it's the two countries that are most pleased about this are Iran and Russia. They did absolutely nothing to cause what is a rift now between the United States and Saudi Arabia. I really believe that there are certain elements of our relationship that have to be immune from the vagaries of our bilateral relationship. Just over the weekend, former Director CIA John Brennan, with whom you know I've had my differences, said that we should consider halting routine intelligence collaboration. That would do nothing but put our citizens and our homeland at risk. So we need to not do that. And while we consider policy measures, I think the president is going to need to own this at the appropriate time. There's a bipartisan consensus to go pretty far and consider freezing military sales and sanctions. I think the president is going to have to reach out to the Congress and manage that to ensure, as Sebastian Gorka said, that our interests are taken care of from a national security perspective. Agree 100% with Dr. Gorka on that.
All right, we'll take a break. More with Dan Hoffman, Dr. Gorka. Dr. Gorka's new book is out, Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies with No Apologies. All right, as we continue on Sean Hannity Show, Dr. Gorka's brand new book, by the way, Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies, No Apologies. Dan Hoffman also with us, Fox News contributor, 30-year CIA ops officer. And thank you again, both of you, for being with us. What about this story of this Treasury employee charged with leaking financial information on Trump campaign officials and the Russians, now been arrested and charged? Pretty outrageous. And it makes me think, why doesn't this happen to Hillary? Dan Hoffman.
Yeah, you got to be really concerned about that. And I would like to learn more about the facts of the case and the extent to which the Russians may have sought him out. But it's very dangerous when government officials with security clearances are providing sensitive information to our enemies. Very, very serious issue, Sean.
What do you think, Dr. Gorka? Last word.
We need to find out in America if Lady Justice still wears a blindfold, or if your last name is Clinton, you get a pass on committing felonies. It's really that simple, Sean.
It really is. The double standard just reeks to high heaven. Anyway, congrats, by the way. His brand new book, Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies with No Apologies. I'd say that's something we really need to remember as a country. Thank you both for being with us.